they are consistent. They have consistent amount of energy. But money is an energy exchange, and the only places where an energy exchange that can add to an or extra or a minus are the open centers, where we take energy from others, amplify it, and pass it back. This is the only place where energy exchange can be a plus, considered a plus or a minus. And this is why we make money from our not self. And for you, you have 3 centers defined and 6 centers undefined, which means that there are a lot of opportunities to bring in income that would be easy for you. The first one I'm going to start with is from the head center. Now, this is the source of, obviously, inspiration. And all literature comes from an open head. Everything. Because 75% of the population have an open head, there's a lot of literature go around because all the inspiration, everything written comes from an open head. So people with an open head usually have a really easy time writing in, they can tap in sources of inspiration and find the flow in it. Now, the next one is the Ashna Center, and this is the center of conceptualizing. And you can literally sell concepts. Like you can sell people an idea, even though you are not the one to carry it out. And this is usually very useful, but it's way less people who do this. It's only like 46% of people who have an open ashna. And they are less popular, let's say, and that's why usually they make more money. They sell training services, they sell systems, they sell things that give you endless ways of obtaining a diploma. Now, I want to mention just now, because I realized I didn't mention at the beginning, any of these are ways for you to make money if you use them as sources of wisdom. If you get stuck in their not self themes, are the places that get you stuck from not making money. For example, the head center in its not self theme, it's going to put pressure on you to solve other people's problems. As long as you're solving other people's problems, you're not tapping into your inspiration. The Ajna Center, being an awareness center, it's not self part, is dealing with mental anxieties and pretending to be certain, the fear of not being certain, the fear of not being believed. That's a not self theme. And as long as you are playing on that not self theme, of on a fear of not being believed, you won't be able to sell systems because you won't sound believable in selling systems. You won't trust yourself in doing that. But the thing about the open ajna, the undefined ajna, is the beauty of it is specifically that undecision. They have literally an open mind and can see things from different points of view, which is extremely useful. The open ego sees value in others. The open ego sees value in others and is able to help others recognize themselves, help others prove themselves. People with an open ego work really well either in the coaching industry, where they can hype somebody else up, or in the beauty industry, where again they hype somebody else up. when they have an opportunity to recognize somebody else's value, they usually do very well in those areas of work because they have a natural ability to recognize worth in someone else, even though the not self theme of the open ego is feeling unworthy and always trying to prove themselves. So also, as long as you're trying to prove yourself worthy, you're not going to be able to sell this. You have to know that you don't have anything to prove. You are love yourself as you are, and you find your gift is seeing value in others. Now, the splenic center, the splenic center sells well-being, sells support, sells let that go. That's what it says. Sells. Stop procrastinating, give up smoking. It helps people let things go because it's not self-theme, it's holding on to things. So as soon as we learn to let go of the things we are holding on, we can teach others how it is to let go of things. And this is what it says. It says well-being and let that go. The root center, the root center is interesting because the root center has a pressure to feel free. So, but people with an undefined root center are never free. I have an open undefined root as well. We're always busy. There's always tasks on our list that we don't feel free. But the thing is, that's exactly what the root center sells. It sells freedom. It sells pensions. It sells vacations. It says long-term dreams. But the thing is, you can burden a person when you're selling with an open root. To give you a clear example, Ra Uruhu, the creator of human design, had an undefined root, and he's selling a system that frees you of all conditioning, but in 7 years. So you can burden the people. You can say that what you will deliver comes very, very late because it's a process. You can sell a freedom in the process, freedom in the making, something in the future. And this is selling something in the future is something that only the root does. And it's because we tend to want everything quick. As long as we start to ground ourselves, make it a priority, understand patience, and we can sell other people something that happens later. And the solar plexus. Now, the solar plexus is interesting for the fact that it's 50-50. 50% of the population has it defined, 50% of the population has it undefined. And the solar plexus sells truths and desires. This is where, I don't know, everything that goes under desires enters, like expensive cars, brands, everything that goes into what we don't need, but we want. This is what the solar plexus is focused on. Now, these are the main centers and what they sell and how you can attract money to them. But being a 3-5, and especially having the 5 as your design profile, you will have people putting on projections on you on what they think you would be good at. And you get to respond if you want to take on that projection or not. That's how you have to respond. When you take on projections that don't feel right to you, that are not a from the sacral, they're a clear then you're gonna fail the projection in a way. You're not gonna raise to the expectations that the projector set on you, that the person projecting set on you. And it's gonna feel like you're being burned to the rock, they say. But how I feel it is like you're gonna feel like you are not worth. And as a third liner, when you feel that, you tend to jump ship. The third line is bonds made to be broken. Now, the good thing about being a third line in this world is the fact that, as I told you, the whole money system is based on the third line. It's based on bonds made to be broken. There's nothing else in a hiring contract. That's what it is. It's a bond that's made to be broken. It has clauses on how it will be broken. Everything, every investment, any shopping activity, it's a bond made to be broken. It's a bond between two people that's created in a way to be broken. We don't spend our days with the person selling at the corner shop. It's a system that's created based on the third line. Now, I will go a bit into details, but I want to first know if you have any questions. I will go a bit into details about the gates.
I don't think so.
All right. Okay. So before I go directly in the gates, I want to look at your hanging. I just want to know I'm looking at the hanging gates of your open centers. And I'm looking first and foremost at the circuitry to see if you are meant to share your message, support people, or empower. And based on the hanging gates, you have 1, 2, 3 in collective, 1, 2, 2 in tribal. So you are much more likely to share, and more specifically to share logical things. You have quite a logical way of approaching things, especially when it comes to making money. And you are meant to share your knowledge. You are meant to share. So you are meant to share basically questions to people's doubts, because you have gate 4 that's gonna connect to gate 63, which is the gate of doubt. People bring in doubts, so you attract people who have doubts, and you have the energy of the youthful folly, the youthful person, the energy to disperse doubt, the energy to give just enough answers in order to disperse doubt. Let me see in what line this is. It's in Venus. So this is going to be also in your Venus sequence. No, it's not in Venus. Where is? I saw it's in Venus. It's Venus 6th line. Yes, it's the as the 6th line, this is completion, and you have a very educated way of dissipating somebody's doubts, a very logical way of dissipating somebody's doubts. When somebody comes and asks you something, you tend to have a very clear of them to get from that. And then the other gate that's hanging, the other gate that's hanging in the collective is the 48th, also in the logical collective. And this is part of the spleen, so it's about intuition, but this is part of the channel of skills. the channel that is very, very focused on diplomas. And you might be focused on it. You might feel like you need an established foundation of knowledge or diplomas or certification to claim what your job is, to claim what your purpose is, to claim what your role is. And this shows up twice, both in Uranus, both times, one in the first line and one in the second line. So it's going to be a lot about going in to study, gather diplomas, and then share them with the world, because both first and second line have an inner process. But this will attract people that need certain knowledge. This will attract gate 16. Okay, so 40 days. But the other thing about the 48, when it comes to money, it's a gate that it's, as much as it looks for deep meanings and certifications and things like this, they can be also very surface. Sometimes being too smart feels like it's getting away in the success. It feels like might see a lot of people who are below you, like intellectually or knowledge wise, but they are higher than you in profession wise. And you might try to dumb your knowledge down in order to make it fit. This is the negative side of the 48. It seems to know more than it portrays. Being undervalued. Yeah, that's how I would call it, being undervalued.
Okay.
The other one in the collective, so also about shedding, it's the gate 30. This is only in your conscious earth. So it's part of your 70% energy. And this is the gate of desires.
Which gate is that?
Gate 30 in the solar plexus.
Okay.
30 in line 3.
Okay. I just didn't hear which one you were talking about.
Yeah. I'm just looking for the notes on the gate. Okay. So this is the gate of desires, and this gate literally sells fantasy, quite literally. I mean, the 41 on the other side naturally fantasizes about things that they cannot have, and gate 30 sells exactly that. Exactly like I told you in when I discussed the solar plexus. Yeah, this is the specific gate that sells things that you cannot have, that you Lamborghinis and things that don't are so high end and they're so fantasized and they're so wanted that they don't need a commercial. I have the same gates, and from my point of view, it's a challenge to sell with this gate because you have to create the desire in others. You have to create that thing that they want it so hard, but they can't achieve it. And the three, there's three of them. One, no, two, three. Yes. So 46 and 19 13 are all in tribal. Yes, it's 3 of them. Now, the 40 is a love gate, and when it comes to making money, it needs to have a purpose. It needs to have something bigger than money in order to work and make money. This can be supporting a family. This can be supporting somebody else. This can be supporting a cause. This can be anything. But they need the money that they're making, their work, to have a higher purpose than going to work. These are not people who go to work because that's how it's done. These are people who go to work because. And these gates mostly attracts money and customers with denial. It's going quite controversial. It's usually most people who you will see online selling okay with this gate are in the self-help industry. Like I told you, the open ego usually is within coaching and self-help and everything. And it's, I will make you feel worthy. This is the selling message of gate 14. And it usually goes against something else. To give you an example, it's not exactly competition. It's the fitness coaches online that say the other method of fitness doesn't work. Give up, I don't know, cardio is not good for you. You have to start whatever. It's in denial of something else that's already on the market.
Okay.
Gate 6, also in tribal circuitry, so also about support. This is in transit right now, so you might feel it a bit more hype. This is the gate of conflict. And this gate, more specifically, tries to reach the other person. The other side is the gate of vulnerability, the 59. Tries to reach the other person by steering some sort of conflict. But when we're talking about making money, this gate is very, very important because this is the gate that breaks the barriers. This is marketing. It's also part of the sexual channel, the most sexual channel in whole human design. And this channel says there can't be growth without friction. So yeah, there's discomfort when it comes to this gate, but this is marketing. This is advertising. This is breaking the barriers and making the contact between the business, the work, the product, the whatever it is, with the customer. So even in a corporate industry, even in a solo way, this gate specifically does well in marketing. What it does not well with is rejection. It's a bit sensitive to rejection, and it does not like to be controlled. Marketing does not like to be controlled also. It doesn't like to be told what to do. It's easy to light the fire of conflict with gate 6, especially with gate 6 hanging without the 59 on the other side. And the last gate in hanging gate that you have is gate 19. This is in the root. And this is not exactly a gate that sells well because it's about a very long-term pressure. The only thing that I can think of, like an example of something that the 19 gate could sell, maybe insurance, maybe life insurance or something like that, because it's this gate specifically and the whole channel 1949 is about belonging. This is the channel from where religion, institutionalized religion comes from. So it's about belonging to the tribe. So it's a pressure, considering it's in an open route, it's a pressure to be committed to something. So it's not exactly a gate that sells easy, but it's a gate that gets very committed when they get into a job, or it's a gate that gets very committed when they do something about, I don't know, a new venture alone or something. They get fully committed into it because there's a pressure to maintain it long term. But as in solopreneurs, like I said, the only thing I can think of the gate 19 selling is something like life insurance or something long-term. House, yes, housing is a long-term commitment, especially if you have to take a mortgage or something. They might sell mortgages. But yeah, gate 19 is not exactly entrepreneurial, it's more about the commitment. Now, these are your energies. These are the energies you sell with. And if you look at all the other gates you have hanging, for example, the 27 in the sacral, the 3, the 14, the 7, the 13, these are also all your energies that attract something else. And when you look on the other side, like I said, 16, 50, the gates that you are missing from the hanging gates, you have the 48 and you're missing the 16. Those are connections you will meet over and over and over again. Usually, the most simplest explanation is everything that's colored in our chart is the student, and everything that's white, it's what we're here to learn, the lessons. And I'm not talking about centers, I'm talking about every specific gate that open. It will be a lesson in your life, somebody showing up and either triggering you with something or teaching you something.
Okay.
Again, now I'm completely open to any kind of questions, and as you bring in questions, we get further.
Sure. I was chuckling on the last one because the industry that I'm in now and have been for 6-7 years is it's risk and insurance is half the business. So I guess maybe it's not such a bad fit, but and then I'm also certified in applied shamanism, and sort of my volunteer work is to help people move through healing trauma. So it was interesting. You mentioned sort of the healer thing, and then this, and I think, the thing that I struggle with is, I've got all of these different creative lanes that I play in terms of artwork and textiles and things, but I think what I'm hearing is that probably just stays a hobby, and that's the smart thing.
Yes, the inspiration part, it's gonna be present because, as I said, you have an open head, inspiration will come in regardless if it's art, literature, or anything else. Inspiration comes in. No, your job is not a bad fit. It fits in with most of your tribal gates. But what might not be pleased, what you might feel like it's something missing, it might be the specific 3420 channel. The 3420 channel, the only manifesting generated channel that there is in the whole body graph. It's a channel that tries to be alone, tries to be entrepreneurial, tries to be solo. And that's because of the two gates in it. I mean, obviously the channel, the whole is greater than the sum of parts. But if you look at the gate 34, which you have it twice in your profile actually, gate 34 is the gate of power. And the gate of power wants to assume power, wants to be seen as majestic, wants to be seen as confident. And the gate 20 is the gate of the now, which wants to be spontaneous, wants to be in the moment, live freely, independent. When you put these two together in 3420, there's a, I describe the 3420 as a boom to create, an explosion to create. And this is the major difference in manifesting generators. We go from 0 to 100 in seconds because of this channel. This channel doesn't have the weight to respond. The response is seconds. And that's what pushes most manifesting generators into entrepreneurial situations. There's many manifesting generators who don't have this channel, who are indirect manifesting generators, and they don't have any entrepreneurial and creative directions. This is the channel, the manifesting channel, that brings out that spark. And I understand it. I know that it's a struggle to, but as a third liner, allow yourself that creativity and allow others to see it. Just be very cautious for people who start making projections on you if you want or you don't want to assume. So for example, in textiles, you have a friend coming over, sees the textiles you did. Oh, you could do this and this for me. Check in to be honest if you would want to go in that direction or not. Because it can feel very tempting because it would use your creativity, and gate 20 might catch ahead and say yes without actually meaning it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I just kind of feel like there's stuff I'm playing around with, but at the same time, there's no clear path and it, it's going to take somebody saying, hey, there's a place for that out here and we should turn it into something. But then there's that risk that it's not the right path and it's sort of their vision versus yours. But I also find if I try and push something out, it doesn't land,
No. For manifesting generators, most usually it doesn't land when we try to create on our own. I've done it several times with different ventures, and it doesn't land. People just don't see it, don't get to experience it, don't respond to it because we haven't responded in the first place to them. We have to adapt, exactly like you said. Somebody says there's a space here for that, and then you have to respond one step at a time. You're a sacred person, so you can't really respond. There's something happening in 3 months' time. Do you want to happen or not? The most I can do is respond for this week, and even that's not certain, considering the sacral, because I might say, yeah, I totally want to do that. But when that time comes, I go,
yeah, I mean, that's the worst part too, is once you've committed to it, and I avoid committing to a lot because I don't know how I'm going to feel at the time. I will do that at work because it's required and you have to do it. But man, when it comes to my personal time, if somebody asks me, do you want to go to brunch in 3 weeks on a Sunday? I'm like, have no idea how I'm going to feel that day. And why would you ask me to do that in the middle of my day where I can't do anything else with it? And, to me, scheduling in my personal time is like somebody asked me to put a tombstone of the death of my time on the calendar.
Yes, I feel the same way. I fully understand.
But if you ask me 2 hours ahead, I'm like, that's a great idea. Let me get organized and let's go.
I just noticed now that you have the exact same two gates in your sun and earth like me. So personality side. You have the 2930. I have the exact same two. I just have them in the line 4. You have them in line 3. And so therefore your life's work and your evolution are exactly the same. It's your life's work is commitment, the gift of commitment, the shadow of half-heartedness, and the gift of the city of devotion. And being in the third line, I always make this metaphor. Richard Rudd did it also, but with some other profession, with the plumber. He did it with the plumber. I don't relate with plumbers. I don't understand what plumbers, how to explain this with plumbers. So I do it with hairdressers. But
Okay.
the third line hairdresser is the hairdresser that is in it for the experience of cutting hair. It's not there to socialize with the customers. It's not there to reinvent the wheel. It's there because they truly enjoy the experience of what they're doing. And when they're not enjoying it anymore, they're done with it for good and they're going to try something else. So that's where you want to look at half-heartedness, because even if you start something in full commitment and in full process, somewhere along the line, it might change and you have to be honest with that. But when you look at life's work through the third line, that's what you want to look for. And the 30th would be your evolution. And I don't know, that between the evolution and the life's work is a path of challenge. And usually that is the hardest part of from the camera. Okay. Can you still hear me? Because my camera seems locked.
What do you need?
Can you still hear me? Because my camera blocked for some reason. I don't know why.
I can hear you.
Okay. So the main, that's the main path of the activation sequence from what I feel it, because that's the only path that we can actually contemplate consciously. That's our main challenge in life, and that's where we move most often. And obviously, Gates 30 is the gift of lightness and the shadow of desire and the city of rapture. And it's very interesting to move from half-heartedness to desire and see desire as a shadow. And the challenge is to make commitment light. That's our main challenge, to make commitments feel light, feel doable, feel comfortable, feel like they're not a pressure. And you have 2 pressure centers open, so you might take on commitments due to pressure, but that will be your biggest challenge, to not make commitments a pressure.
Yeah, and I think in the past, anytime I've done that, it's because I was in, financial strife, and I'm like, I don't want to do this, but I have to do this in order to get out of this financial bind.
Sounds very typically third liner. Because the third line can make a lot of money, but can lose a lot of money as well. They are the profile which are the most volatile with money. All the others are much more fixed. But yeah, and when usually in the gene keys, since you said that you arrived to human design to the gene keys, usually in the gene keys, after you unlock the path of challenge, you move on to the path of the breakthrough, which moves you from doing to being. On the other side, the 8 and the 14 are all about being, they're not about doing, they're the subconscious. But until we actually, this is where I stayed the most time for myself in contemplation in the challenge path, in the first two, because Richard Rudd describes it as a veil, the breakthrough path, until we fully get over our life's challenge, we can't break through the veil and see who we truly are. And making, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, thankfully financially, like this is the best it's been, and for 7 years now it's been good. But at the same time, I've got all these other pursuits, and I'm like, am I supposed to be doing more with my time and focus other than, enjoying the stability of playing in this corporate world? Am I supposed to be applying some of this? And then of course, I've got this whole other world of, spent 7 years getting certified to do applied shamanism. And in my head, I was like, oh, that'll naturally just become what I do. And then I was like, no, that doesn't feel like it. It's a great way for me to be in service to others. And I appreciate that. But I'm like, that's not going to be my full-time focus, nor do I want to step into the financial instability of that. So, there's a part of me that feels like there's a moment where like things lock in and I know what I'm supposed to be doing. And then, big money comes, and I constantly feel like, am I supposed to be doing more to make those connections or creating those lanes so that I can find it? But I'm not sure it's there. I think, it sounds like it's more just wait and see, bump into what you bump into, and maybe something really sparks and maybe something doesn't.
Yes, especially for the third line, yes. You know what I want to look at, because I'm really curious. I don't know if you looked at it. You are right now right towards the end of your Chiron return.
Yeah.
And
thankfully, not a bumpy ride, not like the Saturns.
Yes. Saturn return is usually the bumpy ride. And if you recognize it as a bumpy ride, Saturn return, then it might mean that you learned most of your life lessons then. Because Ra used to say, if you learn from the suffering of your Saturn return, you're going to be fine. But if you don't, you're going to suffer through your Uranus opposition and then all the way to your Chiron return.
No, like I said, I mean, for about 7+ years, things have been easier and better than they've been in the early years. But that first Saturn return, second Saturn return, man, did I have to go through it.
Cycle with the look at the Chiron.
Wait, when are the Saturn returns? 30 and one's the other one's what?
One is at 60 and the Uranus opposition is at 40.
Maybe it's the Uranus.
Yes, that's the midlife crisis.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm 52 now, so yeah, it's about 44 into 45 that the ship finally righted itself and the same pattern stopped happening. And
yeah, the exact date of the Chiron return was 20 April 2022, so 20 April last year. but it usually starts about 3 years before and ends about 3 years after, because these big cycles take a full biological cycle to fully feel and to fully go through them. Obviously, they're much more intense around that date because it's the most intense part.
Well, interesting. I got laid off, and then it worked out, and I ended up going to a competitor, working for my old boss, and ended up with a big chunk of money. But like, I was like, oh shit, it's happening again. And then I was like, oh no, it's not.
So it was, yeah, literally lessons learned from happening again.
Yeah,
the biggest lessons of your Chiron return are pretty much speaking out, because you have both the 4323 as lesson, life lesson during the Chiron return, and 1156. And Chiron return is pretty much a time when people fall into their purpose. Like, for example, for the sixth line is when they become the role model. Until their 50th birthday, they're not a role model. They become a role model afterwards. And so even if for them it's very visible for the six lines, its values for all profiles, the Chiron return is pretty much falling into purpose. And usually the lessons that it brings up, it's what you need to heal. So for you, the lesson, because Chiron is the wounded healer, and the archetypes connected to it.
mm-hmm.
And the biggest lessons, you have two educational channels in the Chiron return: the 4323, which is the channel of frequent genius, and the 5611, which is the channel of the storyteller. So you are quite literally being invited to share your story without being afraid that you might sound like a freak. Some people will see you like a freak, some people will see you like a genius.
Mm-hmm. And then anything to talk about with the right angle cross of contagion? I really don't ever find any information on what the cross thing is or means. Is it a big deal and I just have not found the right information, or is it kind of a no big deal?
I will send you. I have all the crosses explained directly by Ra, and I will send you yours specifically. He usually talks about the profile and how it affects everything. But considering you're a right angle, the angle of cross of incarnation, it says a lot about your geometry. So you are here to bring in the new. You are not here to, let's say, clear out karma. Everybody has karma, but that's not your focus. Even as a third liner, your focus is not to dig too deep. Your focus is to clear out the old and bring in the new.
That's so interesting. I don't know how to say this, but like, there's this energetic subtext is the best way I can describe it, that in the language I use for it is, it's math we don't have here yet, that I somehow know exists and that we access, but there's no place for it here. And I always kind of feel like, is there a moment where that, whatever that is that I know exists and is accessible and whatever, if there's ever a moment that some door opens and it gets to be here. But that's an interesting phrase where you said, here to bring in the new geometry. It's what my brain immediately went to.
Yeah. You might need, Chiron return might push you exactly in that direction, might push you to talk about it. For example, you got me interested, but um, it might get you to talk about it. It doesn't have to be anything more than talking about it. So yeah, you don't have to make drastic changes in your life, especially since it's clear that you learned through the process. It's clear that you say that it's changed from the Uranus opposition to now the Chiron return. Things didn't repeat in the same way. But what Chiron returns trying to push you is to avoid feeling like a freak and to stop avoiding feeling like a freak, to go for it, even if there's a possibility that you would feel like a freak. Talk about your interests, share them with people, because some people will find you a complete genius. And the fifth line is here to universalize. The fifth line is here to spread the message that's completely new as well. The fifth line is the heretic.
Yeah.
I usually tend to describe the fifth line as that apostle, I don't know how to say his name in English, that apostle of Jesus that didn't believe that he resurrected. And everybody asks me, you mean because he was a heretic because he didn't believe? And I mean, no, because everybody believed after he did. Him believing was enough for the whole other followers to believe. That's the power of the heretic. When he believes something, a whole crowd is gathered and believes the same thing. And that's your design. That's something your mind can't, let's say, modify, pervert, make into a not-self thing. That's your design. That's the heretic by definition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't know if this is a product of just where I am in life and menopause and all those things, but I've got to say too, like over time, I've just absolutely lost interest in romantic partnerships, where it just seems like life seems more full when I don't have those than when I do. They just feel so limiting. Is there anything about my profile that explains that, or is that just part of aging as a woman who's in control of her life?
Well, not yes and not exactly. You have hanging gates that are love gates. Gate 40 is a love gate. And well, gate 46 is a love gate, but it's a transpersonal love gate. Transpersonal love gates don't love anyone in particular. They are loving in nature, but they don't have romantic attachments. But gate 40 has romantic attachments, but they're not the most pleasant. They are usually, how can I describe it? Financial bounds, marriage contract that's financially bound. It's part of the tribal circuitry. So it deals a lot with guilt and things. I did this for you. It's that's kind of energy gate 40. And considering that you might have not had happy experiences with that, because it's a gate that's quite hard to have pleasant experiences with. It's quite literally described earning love. So it's, I'm doing this for you, you'd better love me.
Yeah, and I did getting married several times over that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the only love gate that is in your profile that's hanging. So that's the way you would most likely attract partners. And most probably it literally it's literally mentioned that it's quite usually a painful kind of love, especially when not entered in relationships correctly, when not entered through strategy and authority.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be one of the reasons of losing interest in it.
Yeah.
And the other one is not, you don't have the love gate, but you will attract people with it. So you have the gate 30 and the 41 on the other side is a love gate. Now that's the only gate that's connected to sexuality. It's the gate of fantasy. But again, this is a very problematic love gate. In the best way scenario, this is a very tantric channel. So it's a very tantric love connection, a very sexual love connection. But in the worst scenario, the 41 are the people who cheat because they have the gate of fantasy. And regardless who they are with, they will continue to fantasize about somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
In the not self form, this is the gate where lust goes over love.
Got it.
So again, this might be something that you don't want and why you're avoiding it. But
yeah, it's just a matter of like, you find when you have that, charged attracted, I'm like, oh my God, this isn't attraction. This is just like a karma workout.
yeah, that's how 41 can feel. Yeah.
And at this late stage, I just prefer the peace.
And the 41 has a tendency to diminish any other kind of love, to make attraction feel like it's the most high value in a relationship, which is not for most people. But for the 41 gate, it is. But let me look at it again at the Chiron return. I want to see it all. Yeah. The thing is, you're falling a lot more into femininity, into Chiron return. You have naturally gate 14, and Chiron return is bringing gate 2. So you're a lot more receptive and a lot less going forward for things. So for love and partnership, it would have to be happening in the caring, somebody offering. It wouldn't be into looking for a relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, what are the
Caring, assuming responsibility here, this channel and this connection. Somebody with a 38, that would be somebody who's willing to fight for their values. Yeah, that's the gate of the fighter. So activists, people who hold their values strongly. Your solar plexus is highlighted like a Christmas tree in the Chiron return. So it might have been an emotional period for you, or it might have been quite the opposite.
It was quite the
Period where
opposite. Yeah.
a period where
Everybody lost
emotions are.
everybody lost it over COVID, and I was like thankful for the break and the peace. And I was like, this is the most calm my nervous system's ever been, and I had all kinds of time and energy to create things. So what I would have expected would have been a bumpy ride. Like I was just cool like Fonzie through the whole thing.
The more people with a undefined solar plexus I talk to, everybody loves COVID. I love COVID too. I don't have an undefined solar plexus. Being in our own aura and not having anyone mess up our emotions, it's amazing. I keep telling people when I see an undefined solar plexus, you're as cool as a cucumber on your own. But as soon as somebody emotional comes in, that coolness is disturbed.
Yeah. I mean, it was one of those where I was like, oh, this is who I am. I've never been this alone this long to get this neutral and not be dysregulated. That I was
Yes,
like, this is amazing. This is amazing.
yes,
And, you know, because I
I
don't have
totally
kids
agree.
or spouses that were, you know, up in my business through this whole thing. And literally, I was like, during the day, I turn on the screen and do my job. In the evening, I'm like, what class do I want to do? What project do I want to do? And I'd never, I just didn't even remember feeling like that. I think it took me like 9 months. And I was like, wow, this is what it's like to be me. Amazing.
Wonderful. I have kids pulling me in every direction, but I still enjoy not having to deal with, well, the emotional parts of the family
Yeah.
and other people whose emotions I don't want to deal with. People with an open solar plexus usually have a really easy time reading the room, and usually is the reason why they go or not go in a room because they can feel the emotional tension. And there's sometimes, especially as a sacral person, you just enter and go, no, because you feel the whole emotion build up.
Well, I'm better now. I'd like to, you know, of course, you're all loaded up with everybody else's stuff. And I was raised by narcissists. And so that, you know, I had to play that cycle over and over and attract that several times. Is that just general familial patterning, or is that because of the open solar plexus or
Uh,
root?
a little bit of both. So, because of the open solar plexus, you tend to sense things. And obviously, if you had a narcissistic upbringing, what the solar plexus does is pretty much go into safe places. It avoids conflict, it avoids at all costs feeling unsafe. But if that's how you define safe, if that's what your family was like, it's normal that you would copy the same stereotype because that's what the solar plexus knows to deal with. I've already dealt with this. Let's do it again because I don't know if something new comes in, how I'm going to deal with that.
Right. Or, you know, you get easily picked for it, sort of. They're like, oh, she's conditioned to play that role. Come
Yeah,
here.
yeah. It's also the open, undefined ego. The undefined ego has a type of imposter syndrome, dealing with self worth. Um, it's very interesting to notice people with an open ego who are super worthy and they keep doubting themselves. um, I have most of my coaches who have an open ego. I adore people who have open egos because they see the value in you and they can point you in the right direction and they can give you guidance that other people don't see, but they don't see it in themselves. I can tell them 10,000 times, you're the best coach ever. They will still, yeah, but I still have to do that thing and take another training and do some that. And it's just interesting to notice how they put themselves in a role that's always been them.
Yeah, I can identify with that. Indeed. Oh, well, I realize we're at an hour and 20. I don't know. Was this an hour reading? I'm
Yes, it was an hour,
well over.
but I have
Sorry.
a 15, 20 minutes always overtime because I set it up in such a way so nobody can book next half an hour.
Well, I'm sorry to not pay attention to the clock there. You've been very generous. I appreciate it.
No problem. What I want to tell you, if you enjoyed the chat and everything, I have a private community where I meet people in chats in groups and talk about everything, life in general, gene keys, uh, people bring in charts of their friends or tell me there's a connection and how does it help them. And I do also a workshop every month. This month is going to be about circuitry. And so, yeah, weekly meetings, group meetings with me, and a workshop every month. And it's priced at €8 per month. If you're interested, I will share with the description and the link later on.
Yeah, go ahead and send it with the right angle across thingy, and I'll take a look at it. And
Yeah,
I may reach out to you and try and gift a session like this to a friend of mine who's just turning 50, and she's also like, what am I supposed to be doing to make money? So maybe this would be a good gift for her.
thank you very much for the recommendation or the gift. And I will send you everything with the session recorded. As soon as it finishes processing, I will send you the link and everything with the session together.
All right. Well, it's great to meet you. I've been sort of watching your posts for a while, and I've always kind of resonated with your manifesting generator stuff. So when I saw your post, I was like, hey, well, let's get in conversation.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And it was really nice meeting you. Hope to see you again. Bye.
Bye.